if you can come and we have our socially distant seats, so please feel free to come and have a seat down the front here. Thank you all for showing up. Rep Schmidt brought the food. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm State Senator Michael Rodrigues, and I have the honor and pleasure to welcome you all here today for this event with our good friend Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Polito, Secretary Theoharides, Commissioner Amagon, and others. It was probably about 3 months ago that the governor at one of our meetings said, I've been looking and hearing about what's going on down at Assawompset. You've really got to take me there sometime. And I said, I'd be happy to, Governor. You have an open invitation. I said, we're in the middle of a study right now. It might be a good idea to wait until that project is completed and we can give you and your team an update. But I first became involved in the Assawompset Pond complex back in the spring of 2010. It was May of 2010 when we had the great flooding throughout southeastern Massachusetts, and I was at the time serving in the House of Representatives, representing communities east of here in Westport and Fall River. And our Great Pond Complex, the Watuppa Pond Complex, we saw incredible flooding. And as I was campaigning that year for the Senate and spending a lot of time in Lakeville and in Freetown, I witnessed the devastation that that flooding had on these communities also. And then, of course, I met Nancy Yates, and she's the real resident expert of the pond complex. And we've spent a lot of time over the last 10 years talking about what we can do to ensure that we avoid any sort of tragedy like we had back in 2010. And it was apparent that there were lots of opinions, anecdotal opinions, on what should be done, what could be done, what's the best method for alleviating flooding. So I thought it was important that we really take a good, scientific, hard look at this pond complex as a whole to determine what we can do. So with the help of my good friend, Representative Norman Orwell, we secured money in last year's budget. We hired Bill Napolitano and Serped to lead the study group, and they have completed their work. So now we have concrete, known goals and things that we can achieve to prevent future flooding. So I will be working along with Representative Orwell in the near future, along with the next lady I will be introducing, Secretary Theoharides, in trying to implement some of those action plans. So thank you all for being here, Governor, Lieutenant Governor. It's great to see you here in Lakeville. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Secretary Theoharides.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you to the Governor and Lieutenant Governor, and thank you to the town of Lakeville and the city of Taunton for hosting this event, as well as the town of Middleborough. It's a beautiful pond, and I hesitate to call it a pond. It's so big. I don't know about where the definitions are, but it looks like a lake to me. It's a tremendous natural resource for the region and an example of the kind of richness we have in natural resources across the state that support residents, support natural infrastructure, and support the natural heritage we have of wildlife and beautiful resources here in Massachusetts. Thank you to all those of you who are here today and are involved in the project to bring the various stakeholders together, along with technical experts, to improve the management of floodwaters in the Assawompset Ponds region. The project, and the Senator mentioned this, was catalyzed by a $100,000 grant from the Division of Ecological Restoration in the Environmental Bond Bill to the Southeast Regional Planning and Economic Development Office. This office was charged with working with local stakeholders and a team of experts to prioritize and advance high-priority flood mitigation actions. By bringing several communities together, this project aimed to drive from planning to action. And that's something we really look for. How can we bring these plans together, implement across our region, and really get solutions into place to deal with some of these critical issues? Local stakeholders that have been involved in this process include representatives from surrounding communities, water suppliers, state government agencies, and more. The team of experts supporting this project, and I'd really like to give my thanks to them, include the Nature Conservancy, Manomet, Mass Audubon, and technical consultants, as well as our Division of Ecological Restoration and our Department of Fish and Game. Flooding is a significant issue in the Assawompset region, and the team recognized that a regional approach was needed to mitigate impacts. We've seen this time and time again through our Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, that locally led and regionally based climate adaptation planning and implementation is critical to ensuring climate and flooding resilience. And when communities come together, often across town and city boundaries with partners, we can get tremendous work done. This project team studied and prioritized the most promising methods for improving the ecological functions of the Assawompset region in order to alleviate floodwater impacts. These included nature-based solutions or techniques that mimic natural ecosystems to provide certain services like flood control. These types of strategies are really beneficial because they usually save money over time while providing multiple benefits, including flood mitigation, water quality improvement, all while contributing to great recreational opportunities and support for biodiversity and wildlife. Some of the nature-based solutions that are being looked at here include wetland and cranberry bog restoration for the purpose of capturing and storing floodwaters. And we've seen the heavy rainfall that is coming as an impact of ongoing climate change and the need to really store that water in the ground, not just to deal with floods, but also to deal with drought. It helps to mitigate the drought that we have seen this summer in other regions of the state. Engineered solutions, including culverts and replacing undersized culverts, are also being considered, and that's also a really important thing with climate change, not only for the safety of residents and making sure that flooding doesn't happen and destroy roadways, but also to provide resilient and improved habitat for fish and wildlife species. The project team has had great success securing funding, and I know they're looking to our MVP program for more, and we are really excited to partner with this team and get some of these plans and turn them into real on-the-ground project. But I think this, at its heart, exemplifies exactly the types of projects we're looking for on climate adaptation across the state. It's locally driven, with a team of diverse stakeholders working in partnership and with some resources from the state. It has been helped greatly by the regional planning agency, SERPED, in this region. And the project has been able to bring together those multiple communities because of the partnership of a regional group that has that capacity to bring communities together. And I think we've seen with many impacts of climate change, I think particularly flooding, that's not limited to town boundaries. And finally, the project used science as its basis for making these decisions about which actions to implement, and so that's a critical piece of this as well. And I think a critical lesson for all of us during this time of responding to COVID, that the importance of being prepared and investing in the resilience of communities is something that is long-term and is a really important goal for all of our cities and towns. So I am looking forward to hearing a lot more about this project as we move from planning to action, and I thank you for being here today, and I'd like to turn it over to the governor at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary, and I have to say that when I was originally thinking we were going to be down here, it was going to be talk about Triple E, which I know is a big issue in this part of the Commonwealth, and I just want to thank Senator Rodrigues and the rest of the members and Representative Oil and the rest of the members of the legislature for figuring out some way to drop a Triple E bill on my desk yesterday so that we would have it available for us today. I don't really know how you pulled that one off, but congratulations to both of you and to your colleagues. We're obviously here today to talk a little bit about a great pond, right, Nancy? A great pond. A great pond, which is what you get to be if you're not a lake and you're this big. I've seen this on the map for years. I've driven by it many times. I've never had a chance to actually see it in person, and I just want to start by saying how happy I am, along with the Lieutenant Governor and the other members of our team, to have a chance to talk a little bit about how we deal with some of the issues around here associated with culverts and flooding and fisheries, and all the rest. And we look forward to working with everybody on that as we go forward. But before I talk a little bit more about that, I do want to give my daily update on what's going on with respect to COVID. Yesterday, almost 13,000 individuals were tested here in Massachusetts. That puts us up to about 1.3 million tests that have been administered so far. Yesterday, there were 143 new positive cases reported, which brings the statewide total to about 106,770. The 7-day average positive test rate remains under 2%. It's about 1.7%, which is down about 95% since the middle of April. There are currently 557 people hospitalized for COVID-19 statewide, 77 of those in the ICU. That's down about 85% since the middle of April. And as of yesterday, 6 hospitals were operating using some form of surge capacity, although many of them were using it for reasons that had something to do with, that didn't involve COVID. These progress indicators are obviously critical to us as we continue to move forward with respect to our own reopening plans here in Massachusetts. And obviously those public health data metrics are the key ones that we spend a lot of time paying attention to and working on. And I want to say what I pretty much say every time, which is how proud we are of the work that's been done by the people of the Commonwealth to do their part every day to control and manage this insidious disease. We all need to keep doing what we've been doing if we're going to remain successful here. And as I said many times, that means wear a mask if you can't keep your distance. Use good hygiene, wash your hands wherever you can. If you can be outdoors instead of indoors, go for it. And obviously, as we've said many times before, wipe surfaces, disinfect, and respect the virus. We just finished taking a walk down to the beach here, and I must say, I felt a little bit out of place walking down to visit a beach in a suit and a tie and a pair of black shoes. I hope no one took a picture of me in that particular garb because I'd hate to have it used against me at some point down the road. But I did want to have a chance, as I said before, to personally get a look at this place, and in particular, not just because of its beauty, but because of its importance as a valuable habitat here in southeastern Mass, and also for the recreational opportunities that come from the hiking and the fishing that are associated with it. It also provides, as the Secretary and as the Chairman said, drinking water to both New Bedford and to Taunton, and it's also a very important natural resource here in the Commonwealth, and especially in this part of Massachusetts. With respect to that, I just want to point out that we have never seen numbers like the numbers we've seen over the past few months of people spending time in our state parks and at our beaches, and it's really been, in many respects, for us, an eye-opener, and it's one of those great examples of where the outdoors, and especially the natural outdoors, can be a real opportunity for respite and relief for people during periods of high anxiety, which is obviously where a lot of people have been and how they've felt over the course of the past 120 days or so. Both the Chairman and the Secretary talked a lot about some of the flooding issues that are associated with this complex. Past flooding events have caused all sorts of havoc involving evacuations, property damage, and problems for critical utility and road infrastructure. Climate change is going to continue to be an issue across communities like this, and especially in places that are considered to be among the most vulnerable to storms and to high weather events. We're obviously taking this stuff seriously. It's why we created a vulnerability planning program a few years ago, and why we started investing side by side with our colleagues in local government in a variety of mitigation strategies to help communities do the things they needed to do to both protect themselves, but also to protect many of their natural resources. We've spent about $780 million over the past 5 years on mitigation and preparation efforts associated with climate change, and that particular municipal vulnerability preparedness program has awarded over $32 million to date to Massachusetts communities to support their resiliency efforts, and 82% of Massachusetts communities are now voluntarily enrolled in this program. We're encouraged to see more and more towns and cities working together on regional adaptations to deal with this particular issue, and obviously this is a great example of exactly that. This particular complex has climate issues and mitigation issues that affect a number of communities, and it's important for them to act regionally and for us to work with the region to deal with those issues as we move forward. We're obviously looking forward to turning what has been an exercise around what to do and why into an exercise around how to do it and when, and we're looking forward to seeing that process move forward despite all the issues associated with COVID and all the rest. I also just want to say in closing how much we appreciate our relationship and the work that we do with our colleagues in the legislature and with our colleagues in local government. It's nice to see so many folks from local government here, Mayor. It's nice to have you here with us as well. And I would just say that from our point of view, one of the most important initiatives we began several years ago was this collaborative effort with our colleagues in local government and the legislature around dealing with, mitigating, and prepping for all the issues associated with climate change. And we look forward to continuing to be able to invest in this very important natural resource here that plays such an important role in Southeastern Mass in so many different ways. Thank you. With that, I'll turn it back over to Secretary Theoharides.
Next up, thank you, Governor, we have Mayor Shauna O'Connell from the City of Taunton. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. So a number of us were down at the beach in our suits, so it wasn't you alone, Governor, so we're all there with you. I did get to take off my shoes at least, but it's a nice place to be. And it's wonderful to be here with everyone today on what I will call a beautiful summer afternoon. I know it is gray out, but this is a beautiful place to be no matter the weather. And so it's nice to get out of the office and be here with everyone for a little while. Protecting and maintaining the Assawompset Pond complex is important to all of us here today, and we really value the opportunity to be partners with everyone in achieving that goal. And we're grateful that Governor Baker, Lieutenant Governor Karyn Polito, and Secretary Theoharides are also here and have taken the time out of their busy schedules, and that they recognize the importance of this vital asset to the public health and environmental health. The City of Taunton built the Assawompset Dam in the late 1800s to protect the public health. And for over a century, I think all of our communities have been very proud to work together to maintain and protect this vital asset to all of our communities. As home to one of the, I guess, most successful herring and alewife runs, and also one of the largest populations of breeding endangered freshwater shellfish, we really are unique. This area is very unique to the Commonwealth and also New England as far as natural history goes, and it's something that we can all be very proud of. So a study of the watershed will ensure the continued success and vitality of this complex for the long term. And we really do recognize the importance of collaboration with all of the stakeholders and look forward to that so that we all enjoy improved water management for not only our drinking water, but also for recreation and wildlife. So we really thank everyone that we've worked with over the many, many years, and look forward to the work that we will do with all of you to maintain and improve the dam as we move forward and leave it in better shape for generations to come and working well for the next century. So thank you all for the work that we do together. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks for talking about the tremendous biodiversity resources here. It's amazing what is down here in Southeastern Mass in terms of those resources. Next up, we have Elaine Galati from the City of New Bedford Water Division, another project partner who has really focused on protecting the watershed as a whole, so the water quality remains in very good shape.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Mayor Mitchell and the City of New Bedford, we are very grateful that the Commonwealth has provided us this opportunity to participate in the regional plan that will ultimately protect our most valuable resource. The Assawompset Pond complex is essential for several communities and hundreds of thousands of people, but equally for the wildlife and for the natural environment. We understand everything is connected, and with that, that's how we prioritize protecting the health and well-being of our natural resources, from the water to the eagles and everything in between. We closely monitor the pond levels at several locations, collect data on the groundwater levels and rainfall amounts so we can compare historical conditions. We coordinate the dam operations quarterly with all the surrounding communities and Fisheries and Wildlife, as well as the Herring Commission. We know that the herring are invaluable to the food chain and the ecosystem, which is why we work very closely with the Commission and do our best to accommodate their requests. We recognize the impact the surrounding land has on our water system and work closely with our forester as part of our forest management plan. We annually tend to sections of the watershed to maintain the sustainability of the forest, which is equally as important. These regionalized plans will scientifically address the concerns with flooding and sustainably restoring our natural environment. Ideally, it would put to rest the perception that we can control the forces of Mother Nature and define what measures need to be taken to work with nature instead of trying to fight it. To work with it in such a way that will nourish and improve the living conditions for all. It would be foolish for us to ignore the myriad of changes the Earth is currently undergoing, and in this case especially that of the climate. So for the health and safety of the people, we must do what we can to protect and nourish our natural resources, and that includes everything considering all the considerations of all the communities. With that, we'd especially like to thank the Herring Commission as a unifying force. They brought together the communities, presenting quantifiable data and historical knowledge, and above all, recognizing the common goal amongst all. As a volunteer group, their passion and dedication to the herring serves as a constant inspiration to the group as a whole. They've led by example and demonstrated how effective and efficient an organized, unified body can be. We'd also like to thank Serped and Nancy Yates for the historical wealth of knowledge that they've provided to us all in recognizing what a valuable asset the entire pond complex and watershed truly is. We're very excited about this. It is the first of many steps towards improving and further protecting our natural environment. And we couldn't thank everybody more for everything that they've done, and we truly appreciate all of the work that has gone into this. Thank you.
Thank you, and to close us out today, I'm very pleased to invite Nancy Yates from the town of Lakeville to the podium. Nancy has been a true leader and visionary of work in the Assawompset and has been working on this for 20 years, I understand. So thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. Everybody that's here knows how happy I am today. Over the past 20 years, I have worn many hats. Through it all, the main focus of all my efforts has always been the protection of our extraordinary natural resources. Since 2002, I've been the environmental manager of the Assawompset Pond Complex Management Team, whose members include representatives from Taunton, New Bedford, Middleborough, Lakeville, Rochester, and Freetown, also DEP, Fisheries and Wildlife, and for the last several years, the Middleborough-Lakeville Fishery Herring Commission has been joining us at our meetings, and it's been wonderful. For many years, especially since the flooding of 2010, we have all agreed on the need for a comprehensive management plan for the APC. Individual communities over the years have undertaken smaller studies, and many were filed away because the overall size and complexity of the project seemed to scare them away and was overwhelming. Recently, as we all worked on our municipal vulnerability plans, most of us, with the help of the local planning SERPED, and especially, he's not going to like it, but Bill Napolitano has helped us all with our MVP plans. And a common thread was that all our communities had the same concern about the APC and our vulnerability during a flooding event. Now, we have regionally documented through our MVPs the need for a comprehensive management plan. The grant money we received both from Senator Rodrick and Representative Oral for the Floodwater Management Planning Project, again, through SERPED, brought together all the right people. And as a result, we have a clear vision of what needs to be done, including the path through permitting, which otherwise could be very intimidating. Now, what we need is the determination to finish the job, because it will not be easy and may still take a long time. I believe that working together as a region, we have taken the first steps and gained the momentum to move forward. I have not been as excited about a project since 2002, when we all worked together to protect 4,000 acres of the land that surrounds these ponds. One of the greatest gifts we can leave for future generations is a sustainable, well-managed, and safe drinking water supply. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you again to all of the project partners who are here today. Without all of you, this wouldn't be possible. Really appreciate the support from the legislature and their support for all of the efforts that the locals are bringing out and planning here. So thank you. I will turn it over to the Governor for questions.
Questions on this? I think the flood was probably the sort of seminal moment, but I'd like either the chairman or Nancy, you could talk a little bit about that. The question was when did people really start to realize that a regional approach needed to take place, and was there a moment in time that created that?
Like I referred to a little while ago, I believe that as a region we realized in 2002 and up to between 2000 and 2002 we realized, because we all came together to protect the land. So that was the first step. So that was like 18 years ago. So it's been a long time coming. One of the main problems, and which we all voted on what we thought, because all the different communities have different priorities, and we all voted. When I voted for Lakeville, the priority that I voted number one were undersized culverts on Route 18, where Long Pond empties into Assawompset. The culverts are undersized. It takes a full 10 days for after a flood event, and a major flood event even longer, for the water to get out of Long Pond into Assawompset, and that's our community. That's Freetown and Lakeville. Most 3/4 of it is Lakeville, and that's where the people were flooded out because that water couldn't get out. So that's another part of this project. It's a multifaceted project. It's not just one solution. It's a lot of solutions. That's why it's taken this long to get this far.
There are thousands of culverts in Massachusetts, and most of them, not surprisingly, aren't really visible to the street, okay? Unless you knew they were there, you wouldn't know they were there until they failed. And one of the things that's happened over the course of the past last 20 or 30 years, primarily as a result of climate change, is you have much fiercer storms than we used to have, where far more water falls in a short period of time, which means that a lot of these undersized culverts fail, and that creates all sorts of issues with respect to the bodies of water that theoretically they're supposed to be bleeding into, or the rights-of-way that they're supposed to be protecting from flooding. And we filed legislation earlier this year to basically create a program to take on all of these culvert issues across the Commonwealth. That was one of many of the elements of it. And we'll take these things on a sort of risk analysis basis one at a time. But the culvert issue not only helps with the flooding and some of the issues about sort of land protection, but the culverts also make a difference with respect to the wildlife that actually ends up in the pond, including things like herring, which is a really important part of the ecosystem of this particular body of water. So I say all the time that culverts are not sexy. They don't generate a heck of a lot of votes. And unless you really knew what they were and what they did and where they were located, you would never pay 5 seconds worth of attention to them. But the simple truth of the matter is, over the course of the next, pick a number, 5, 10, 15 years, we're probably going to have to either upgrade, expand, or dramatically improve the quality of practically all the culverts in the Commonwealth. And it will make a huge difference with respect to both property management, water management, wildlife management, and flow control. Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would just start by saying is that, as I said before, what happened out there was a terrible tragedy, and that's why within 2 days of learning of the series of events that led to that tragedy, we hired former federal prosecutor Mark Pearlstein to issue a report. In his report, both the Lieutenant Governor and I have referred to it as gut-wrenching, very well done, but very hard to read. And I'm not going to speak to anything associated with, pending legislation, because we just don't do that. But having now talked to many of the families, myself personally, over the course of many hours, I am more than aware of the pain and the sadness and the loss that they feel. Can you believe it's going to be a warm weekend? Really? Welcome to New England. Yeah. Most of the policies that we've established, either as guidance or as advisories or even the orders, are what we consider to be a statewide framework. And if locals wish to pursue a slightly different policy that involves their communities, as long as it's not a policy that negates what we've put in place for guidance, because we believe the guidance that we put out there represents what we would call a safe approach to deal with this stuff, we're okay with that. So, for example, the mayor of Gloucester decided that she was going to go resident only at Good Harbor and Winger Chic Beach this weekend because she was concerned about the crowding that she saw at the beaches. Those are her beaches. Those are the town of Gloucester's beaches. Perfectly appropriate, okay? We are going to have and anticipate a lot of folks at our beaches this weekend and at our parks and at our playgrounds and at some of our pools. They're not all open for a variety of reasons, but the bottom line is with the right guidance and the right safety mechanisms in place, we believe these are critical elements to giving people a chance to be outside and to enjoy the great outdoors. One of the things I said in my remarks, and this has been proven out both on experience and on on some of the studies that have been done, is outdoors is so much safer than indoors when it comes to dealing with COVID. And while we think it's critically important for people to continue to wear face coverings if they can't distance, indoors or outdoors, we do want people to experience and to enjoy the outdoors, and especially the natural assets that we have available here in Massachusetts. Those are among the best places people can go, and what I would argue in a COVID world like the one we live in now, among the safer. like I said, we've got statewide guidance in place, and industry-specific protocols. We pursued a very phased-in approach to this. Are we 10 weeks into this? 9 weeks since we got started? May 18th? May 18th? And across all those measures that we track, our numbers have gotten better over that period of time, which is a little different than what's going on in some other places. And I think that's because we took a very careful and cautious approach. We worked with the employer community and the public health community to put guidance in place that people felt they could and would comply with, which was critically important on a statewide basis, and then work to develop very particular protocols across every industry that's been allowed to move forward since we got started. And we're going to continue to watch the public health metrics, pay attention to the data, and only move forward if we continue to see positive developments on the stuff that's out there. But again, Boston, Somerville, there have been a number of other communities that have chosen to pursue a path to reopening that is different than ours in terms of time frame. But if and when they do open, we fully expect them to comply with the statewide guidance that we put in place under our orders with regard to face coverings and all the rest, and the industry-specific protocols. That's kind of a must-do. But if people have things they want to do that go beyond that, or they want to wait an extra week or two before they go to whatever the next step is, that's part of the reason why we have a local government. I mean, Lieutenant Governor and I talk a lot about the fact that we both served in local government before we served in state government, and the notion that the folks on the ground locally, in many cases, have a very important sense and appreciation for what's going on in their communities is a critical element of how we think about this whole exercise. And there are plenty of places around the country where you have local and county officials that are fighting with each other and then fighting with state officials over one thing or another. We don't have that. And the reason we don't have it is because her reopening committee spent an enormous amount of time. It had local officials on it. And in addition to that, spent an enormous amount of time talking to them about what we were doing every step of the way, because they are our eyes on the ground in many cases. And I think in part that's had something to do with why people in Massachusetts, for the most part, have adopted the guidance and the messaging that's come not just from us, but from the public health folks and from a lot of their own local officials. And I think that's a better way to do this. Put a framework in place, make sure that framework is based on the science and the best advice we've got, and then if some folks at the local level want to do something a slightly different way, celebrate that. That's not a problem. That's a good thing.
Thanks, everybody.
And thank you all for coming out on a Friday afternoon. I hope you have a nice weekend.